In this episode, we talk about how soon to quit your job when you're building a business. Get excited because this is Tiny Leaps. Big change, big. Welcome to another episode of Tiny Leaps. Big changes, where I share simple strategies you can use to get more out of your life. My name is Greg Clunas, and in this episode, we are looking at a topic that pops up over and over and over again. There are many of you listening to this show that are freelancers, are artists, are photographers, are musicians, are people trying to do something, to be independent, get out of the quote-unquote rat race, and build something on their own terms. And many of you ask me, hey, I'm doing this, and this. Do you think I should keep my job, or do you think that I should wait and keep grinding away? And the answer is fairly straightforward, fairly simple, but I do want to dive into it in this episode because I think that it's something that can help a lot of people as far as how to approach that question and how to really find the answer for yourself, because ultimately it's going to come down to your decision. Now, before we jump into that episode, let's take a look at today's sponsor. We all know how important our mental health is when trying to make big changes in our lives. Simply put, without taking care of our mental and emotional health, we won't be able to take the tiny leaps we need in order to move forward. That's why today's episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the world's largest counseling service. It's 100% online and has helped 759,000 people just like you. With BetterHelp, you can get the support you need easily. Simply make an account, answer a few questions to be matched with the perfect counselor, and you're good to go. You can speak with your counselor in whatever way you want, via text, chat, phone, or video sessions. And you can get the help you need exactly when you need it by messaging your counselor anytime, anywhere, or scheduling a live session at a time that's convenient for you. Every counselor is licensed, professional, and thoroughly vetted, so you can breathe easy knowing that you'll get the help you need. So take control of your mental health in 2020 by going to www.betterhelp.com/tinyleaps. That's www.betterhelp.com/tinyleaps. When you sign up today, you'll get 10% off your first month. So head over to betterhelp.com/tinyleaps and get started right now. All right, so to quit or not to quit. Now, if you're in this place where you are building a business, maybe you're a web designer, a graphic designer, you're a freelancer of some kind, you're a writer, you are trying to do something. Maybe you're a coach, you're trying to do something. You're trying to reach people, bring value to them, get paid for that value, and build something on your own. And maybe you are working full time on the side of that, or maybe you're working part-time. Maybe you're working at Starbucks, or maybe you're an actor or an actress or a comedian or some kind of artist that is trying to do something and also working as a waiter or a waitress or a host or a hostess while you do it. There's a lot of you out there. So first of all, I want you to recognize that the position you're in is the most common position, right? Most people are trying to do something. Most people are trying to be better, at least most people that listen to this show. People don't really listen to this show if they have no interest in getting better. That would be weird. So you are the norm. Like, where you are at is the norm, and that's exactly where I was at, and maybe I will be again in the future. Where you're just juggling so much, and you're trying to get so much done, and there's just not enough time. And that's one of the big reasons that this question pops up of, do I quit or not? Because it seems like, right? It feels like, well, if I just had a little bit more time each day to put towards this thing, I could figure it out, right? It feels like if I just go all in, I could make it work. Here's my advice, because I've been in that position. I've had that exact conversation with myself, and every single time I jumped ship, it was both worth it and ridiculously painful. So let me break that down a little bit. When I first quit my job, the first time that I ever quit my job. So I graduated college in 2014. By that June, I believe, I had my first full-time job. And then by that December, I had quit that full-time job to try and go off on my own. So January 2015 through April 2015, I was self-employed, and that didn't really mean anything. My big mistake with that attempt was I had a lot of skills, right? So I felt like, oh, well, if I could just do this full time, I could figure it out. I've got web design skills, graphic design. I could do sound engineering. I could do podcasts. Like I could do a lot of different things. So it felt like if I just figured it out, if I just had the time, I could make it work. And I was also young enough at the time that I was on my mom's health insurance, so I didn't have to worry about that. I was capable of moving back home, which is exactly what I did. And at that point, actually, I think I was commuting from home anyway to go to work in the city, so about 2 hours each way every morning. So it just made a lot of sense. But the big mistake that I made was that I thought more time was the answer, when in actuality, I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I should do with that time. Because it doesn't matter if you have more time to put at the thing if you don't know what to do with that time. If you don't know what to do with it, it's just going to be wasted. It's just going to be spent figuring it out. And figuring it out is not where you want to be with a business. Figuring it out is where you are with a hobby. When you have a hobby, you have space to figure it out. You can work at it. You can take the time to think through it and learn and read and do all of the things that you need to do and fail. When you have a business, you can't just figure it out. You need a plan. You need to know what you are going to do, and that plan might be the wrong one. But you still need a plan. And that was my first big mistake. That first time I quit my job was I didn't have a plan. I thought if I had enough time, that was the variable, right? If I just had more time, I was smart enough and skilled enough to figure it out. But despite my smarts and despite my skills, I still crashed and burned. And so by the end of that period of time, so January 2015 to April 2015, I was knocking on the door of my old job, begging them to take me back. Why? Because I needed money. And I was out of money, and I didn't know how to make money. I didn't know how to bring in clients. I didn't really know what my services were. I didn't have a portfolio of work. I didn't have any of the things that I needed to have a business, because I didn't have a business. I had a hobby that I was good at, but it was still a hobby. So that's the first big lesson. The first thing that I want you to take away from this is that time is not always the variable. Time is not always the piece that's missing. Sometimes what's missing is you just don't know what to do with the time that you have. So whatever time you do have, even if that's 30 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour, 20 minutes, whatever it is that you're able to put into this side project every single day, your first job is to figure out how to actually use that time. Figure that out, and you'll be able to much more clearly see whether or not it makes sense to jump ship, because once you do, you will have more time, but you'll know what to do with it. Now, the second big mistake that I made when I tried to quit my job, this was the second time I quit my job, was that same job, right? So I graduated 2014. By June, I had my first job. December, I quit. April 2015, I went back to the same job, right? By that December, again, actually, oh, I feel bad for this company. If anybody from that company is watching, I apologize for what an asshole I was. I really was not a great employee, but thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to realize that I was not a great employee. Anyway, so by December of 2015, I quit that job again, right? But this time, and I learned my lesson this time, or at least a lesson that I thought I needed to learn. I recognized that before I could jump ship again, I needed a plan. So I was working that entire time from April to December, and I was working after work on my own stuff. At this point, I was doing freelance podcast editing. I had a few of my own shows. I was doing web design for clients, and I was planning. The plan was I was going to leave, go full time, and build my web design business. That was the goal. Because I had web design skills, I knew what I needed to do. I knew I could make a good amount of money with it. I had clients. I knew exactly how to serve them. I had inroads with new clients. I took the time to build the foundation that second time. And that really opened the doors for me to feel like, you know what? Okay, it's not about, oh, I just need more time and I can figure it out. It's, I need more time to work this plan. And that was critical for that second jump. Now, it turns out that sometimes the plan isn't enough either, because I left that job in December. I happened to have the idea for this podcast in that same month, December 21st, 2015. Decided to launch it very quickly, January 1st. A big part, a big reason why it happened so fast was because I was trying to build a web design agency, and I didn't want to spend a ton of my time that I now had focused on launching a podcast that who knew what was going to happen, right? Which, wild to think about. But I put it out quickly, and then I got to work. I started focusing on these are my existing clients. I need to serve them better. I need a web presence. I need to develop a way to attract leads consistently. I need to figure out my sales pitch. Like, there was a lot of work to do, but I at least had some kind of a plan. And then that plan got thrown down the toilet, and here's why. Because an opportunity popped up. I launched the podcast. It was doing ridiculously well, and that opened the doors for a lot of people who wanted to work with me to get their podcast to do really well. Now, here was the issue. I knew how to get podcasts to do really well. That was something I was good at, but I had never considered the plan of how do I get these clients, right? How do I find these people who need this service? And so it worked out fine for most of 2016, where referrals brought in clients, and I was able to keep afloat. But because I didn't come into it with the plan to build a podcast agency, I went in with the plan to build a web design agency. I didn't have the things figured out. I didn't know what I should be pricing. I didn't know how to bring in new customers consistently without having to rely on referrals. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just coasting on this opportunity that popped up. That was it. Meanwhile, I'm building Tiny Leaps. So I didn't even have the extra time that I needed to figure that stuff out because I was doing another side project effectively. So by the end of 2016, in that November 2016, I lost like 60 or 70 or 80 something % of my revenue overnight. A bunch of clients decided to cancel, and it very clearly hit me that, I don't know how to bring in new clients. I never had to consider this. It was just happening. I didn't know what I was doing to do it. And so by the end of that year, I wasn't able to recover and I had to take another full-time job. And that full-time job, I decided I'm going to go into sales. I'm going to learn what I need to learn in order to take another crack at this. And then that turned into my role at NASDAQ when I got into product design and started working with them. And eventually that role ended and I decided to go full-time again. This time having taken essentially a year to figure out the plan and figure out what I was going to be doing. But here's the big takeaway here. And I know I've been ranting a little bit, but hopefully there's value in this for you. Leaving your job, leaving your main source of income, because you feel that if you just had enough time, you could figure it out. If you could just spend more time on this thing, you would be amazing, is not a good idea. Use the time you already have to figure out what you would use that time for. Like, you need to go into it with a plan. That plan might still fail. It might still not work. It might get upended the way mine did. But you need to go into it with some kind of a plan. That is your only shot at being successful. Once you have that plan and you feel like, you know what, I can make this plan work. I've got enough money that I can survive if I need to. There's an opportunity for me to jump back into if I need to. That was the other thing, was I knew that I was able to get another job if I needed to, because I was willing to take, quite frankly, a horrible job. Like, the job that I ended up taking was better than I was willing to take. I knew that there are any number, especially where I lived in New York City at the time. I had skills in marketing. I knew that there were any number of, excuse my language, shitty jobs that would be willing to hire me for a $35K salary. Like, I knew that existed. Now, would that be ideal? No, but I was willing to take that if I absolutely crashed and burned. That was part of my plan. If I crash and burn, I can get any crappy job out there because no one else wants them. And there's a ton of them in marketing. I knew that. So that was a part of why I felt comfortable jumping ship with less money in the bank than I needed, simply because if I have to, I can get a job. It's that basic. If I have to go back, I can go back. That's not always possible for everyone. So you really need to consider that for yourself. And you also need to consider, like, does taking a job at McDonald's sound like the worst thing in the world to you? Because I'm telling you right now, if I wake up tomorrow and my business has crashed and burned, I will happily take the job at McDonald's. I will get the $12 an hour or whatever it is they pay, and then use that to jump to the next thing, which probably would be a better paying job. And then from there, jump to the next thing and the next thing, the next thing, and probably end up solo again, because that's always where I'm going to end back up. So ultimately, if you're trying to go off on your own, there's nothing to worry about as long as you have a plan. It's really not scary as long as you have a plan. If you know what your exit looks like and you know what your entrance looks like, everything in the middle, it can work. Maybe it doesn't work, but it doesn't matter. You go in with a plan, you leave with a plan if you need to, or you stay in and keep working the plan if it's working. But ultimately, do not jump ship until you have a plan for what that time will be used for. So I hope this is helpful to somebody out there. If it was, be sure to click subscribe wherever you are tuning in. And don't forget to drop a comment or leave a review, again, wherever you are tuning in. I've been Greg Clunis. Thank you so much for being here. And remember that all big changes come from the tiny leaps you take every day.